This is Dungeon Defenders Awakened. We're on Xbox Series X taking a look at this excellent latest entry in the tower defense slash active you playing in the tower defense game situation setup. So this is a co-op focused experience where 4 players can come together to battle against waves of enemies as they attempt to survive on various levels and conquest across various missions and objectives, since there's a lot of different game modes that you can enjoy while you're playing. So on the Series X, we're getting the 1x enhancement carried forward, which is running at a 4K resolution at 30 FPS. Now, the developers did mention in a forums question that they don't have dev kits for next-gen consoles, so there might actually be an optimization down the road as well. I thought that was worth mentioning. It doesn't note that HDR is present within this one, just in case you were wondering. So yeah, this is a really great experience. I'm a big fan of the Dungeon Defenders games. It was one of the first titles I reviewed in a written capacity back when I started, when the first game came out, like years ago. Like I think a decade ago at this point or something like that. Anyways, crazy, but yeah, it's a great series, it's a lot of fun, and this latest entry is actually kind of a nice evolution and just next version for the franchise. That's what it really felt like, a good set of new challenging levels, some various improvements to the mechanics and how you play the game, a good set of challenges to work through, and I actually had a lot of fun with it, whether I was playing, by myself doing levels in a single player capacity, or playing with others online in some various modes. And like I said, there's a lot going on here. So you have the main story with some encores, encore levels that is, and some boss battles too, which are kind of fun. You do the waves and then a boss comes. That's not every level, it's just, ending kind of segments before you move on to the next chapter. Now, I would have liked more levels, and I would have liked more variation in the enemies as well. There's a good amount, and I mean, it's a tower defense, so it's gonna feel repetitive to a degree in what you're fighting through. That's just the nature of this particular genre, but they do give you a ton of different weapons and tools to use. Like, there's different classes, and they've all got like a funny little thing to them. They've all got different character sort of styles and quirks. There's like a magic person, I'm a knight type character. I've always been the knight type character, but you can make different characters, and you got like a hero deck, and you can swap between them. You want to try out different things for different situations. It's entirely up to you, and free to play, really. It does have a lot of RPG type mechanics in regards to the looting system, improving your loot too, because you can get, see, I have the hat here, so this is like a decorative hat, but it has certain skill points, so I can spend the money I get from the armor I've sold, because not every piece of armor is going to upgrade your abilities, and then I can use that money to buy these special token things that increase my character further. So you've got skills, and every level you get more skill points. You can increase things such as your damage, your health. You can increase how effective your turrets and your defensive positions are, your traps, and I put a lot of points into that because it's the smart thing to do. Anyways, my arrow thing, my ballista, is just super powerful, which is fantastic. But like I was saying, the hat and the other armor you get, you can improve in a similar way that you improve your skills using the currency that you've gotten from selling stuff that wasn't worth anything to you, which is really great. So in each match, you jump in and you have a set amount of gems, and then you're able to place your traps. Everybody works together, or you can play it by yourself too. I've been actually working through the sort of story by myself mainly, just going online to check out the multiplayer with others, because that was always a fun thing for me to do, was to play it cooperatively, which you can. And then, each round, you get more gems, you collect gems from the creatures you kill, you get different weapons and stuff, and loot falls on the ground. You get used to the different waves, you try to survive so many waves, and then you finish the level. And then there's levels like perfection, and there's difficulty choices. And then there's also different types of game modes, like I had mentioned. There's like survival, or pure strategy, or a mixed bag thing. They offer a lot of different options for you to replay the levels. That's like a big part of this game, is replaying things, trying different strategies, trying different challenges. And I think that's what makes this quite fun, is the fact that you can replay this game, and it looks gorgeous. I honestly think the visual aesthetic in this one is, quite stunning. It looks really, really clean, and it continues to have that distinct Dungeon Defenders art aesthetic that I've noticed since the first game in the franchise, and I think that's kind of cool. So I'd say overall this is a really great game. It's a lot of fun. It provides a good challenge. It's really excellent if you're playing with others. I think you'll have a really good time if you jump in and have some friends with you kind of working through the challenges. And then it offers a lot of replayability. Now, like I had mentioned earlier, I would have liked some more levels, and I would have liked some more variation in the enemies. They do change slightly, but you're killing the same sort of things over and over. And that's mostly just being like, you want more for variation. But I think what they put together here is a very good selection of content, a very good selection of levels, a good challenge, some really nice visuals. And in general, it should be mentioned for context that this is somewhat of a remastering, remaking of that original game. So the levels and the content should be kind of nostalgic for some people that are jumping back into this after being gone for a long time. I myself remembered this level, but kind of forgot about the others mostly. It's been a while, honestly. Now, there's another weird thing where it's like the AI sort of moves at like half frames, which is interesting. And I don't know if that's like all the time that it's really visible, but sometimes they seem to run half framed. And I think that's an art choice, kind of having the move like that, or to keep the performance going. I'm not entirely sure. So that's, it didn't distract or anything like that. I was just kind of like, oh, that's a really interesting look. Like, it stood out to me, and I don't know if it has to you while you've been watching, but yeah, I thought that was something worth mentioning. But overall, it's quite well put together. It's got a neat story thing. I do want to complain that the opening menu, you have to watch a cinematic every time before you get into the game. And I guess from what I've read, that's part of how the game loads. Once you actually get into the game itself and you want to get to different levels, it loads like almost instantly. It's quite impressive. But that initial loading thing is just like, what is this? And I just hate that there's like a trailer that plays every single time. I'd rather just have like a loading bar go across the screen. Just, preference on that one. But like I was saying, lots of different levels to play. A good amount of levels to play. A lot of different enemies to kind of deal with and learn. You get some bigger and bigger ones across the 3 different acts. I think there's like 12 main levels or something like that, and then there's Encore. But yeah, and then the different modes come into play, and that's the big thing here, is if you like the core kind of game loop of loot, you are able to replay this multiple times, taking on different challenges, working on different characters if you'd like. I'm saying there's a lot of replay value here, which is quite impressive. And it'd be really cool if they could, over time maybe add some additional maps and stuff to kind of keep this one going long term. I think that would be really interesting. I don't know. I'd definitely be up for more follow-ups for this franchise. I always have fun when I jump in and play them. They always offer something a little bit different. I like the quirky cast of characters. I like the style of it. I like the challenge. I like that the heart of the series has continued to be pushed forward. A lot of other franchises have an awkward sort of transition as they, as the years go by and they try to keep up with things and they change stuff, whereas this one seems to have a clear sense of progression of the characters and moving along from game to game, and it just feels like a natural progression for each of the entries, which is kind of fun. I mean, the core of it is you're just defending the crystals, right? But there's so much more strategy and challenge to it. Like, just look at the quantity of enemies that are here at this particular time. I think there was like 3 of us in this lobby for that one, and it was just kind of nuts having to deal with that. I think this is one of the early levels I played that we're showing right here, just so you can get some of the initial setups of it. I go a little bit too strategic almost when I'm doing my setups. I think in single player on like medium I can get away with like a lot less sentries than I do, and I can just sit back and let them do stuff. I think they've done a good job on balancing out the difficulty in this one though, providing a challenge if you want it, but also being more easygoing if you just want to, kind of work through it and have fun. I think they've got a nice balance here. And like I said, I do heavily suggest this title. I really like this series. It's quite delightful. There's not too many necessarily quite like it. I would compare it almost to Orcs Must Die, if you're familiar with that series. And that one itself is kind of a lot of fun. I do quite enjoy Orcs Must Die. And I think the third one was out on like Stadia recently. I don't know why I'm getting all sidetracked, but there's just, I wish there was more like this game available, because I think the concept of it, tower defense where you're actively doing stuff, is kind of enticing to me. I find this type of gameplay fun, and I love the challenge of setting up my traps and my defenses to take care of most of the enemies that are coming, and adapting based on what changes, because you can like upgrade your, you know, various traps, defenses. You can also like sell one and then move it somewhere else. You get like a build phase, so you can set things up. Like, they give you a lot of options and opportunities for you to adjust and change how you're interacting with the challenges that are coming. Like this setup here that I've shown before, the co-op one, I was just letting the other player here do their setup, because I do find it somewhat rude if someone was to come and you know, come in and change my setup of it. That being said, I probably should have been placing down some defenses too, because I don't know if they necessarily knew what they were doing, and when we got to that boss phase, they just like obliterated us, whereas I would have set up my, you know, defenses in a different way. And that's the cool thing about the game, is that everyone's going to do their setup differently, and it's the coordination of your team that really will impact how you kind of, how successful you are and how well you run through a level. Like this guy's more, I'm doing defense with a little bit of trap support, we're gonna kill things, whereas I would be like more on the assault, having something that would shoot down at the enemies as they come in, and then around the corners, around the side. You really got to watch like the flow of where the level kind of goes. And this is cool because this is like the downtime. This is just like the building phase. This is setting things up. It gives you an idea of what this part of the game is like, whereas I've shown action the whole time through. But I hope you got an idea of what Dungeon Defenders is like. It's great. It's a lot of fun. If you play the older ones, they're really good too. This one, you know, just a nice, smooth, modern take on the series. I hope that it eventually becomes optimized, that the developers get around to doing that, because I think, you know, the extra power is here. But for now, it runs perfectly fine, fluidly, looks great, plays well, and is a lot of fun with tons of replay value. So definitely do suggest this one. It is a indie gem, I guess.